Sometimes, like with the example I have here, where I want the space bar to cause the player to jump, sometimes we want the flow to do what's called a branch. We want to check. If the button is down, then we want the player to jump. If the button is not down, then we don't want the player to do anything. To do this, we can use a node called if. It's as simple as that. If. You can also find this if node or other nodes that sort of control the flow of your scripting language under control. This will sort of give you a bunch of different options on how you can sort of control these different flow nodes in more advanced ways. So with us here, notice how the input had a input flow node and an output flow node. So after the event update happens, it's going to check this input get button down. And then following that, it's going to go into this if. And then there's two output flow nodes here. There's a true and a false. If this if statement evaluates to true, then it will head out along this path. If it evaluates to false, it will head out down this path, right? So we're looking at a slightly more advanced node here because there's two different paths that it could essentially follow after this. Now, when I say if this evaluates to true or if this evaluates to false, what am I talking about here? Well, I'm talking about the data port. So remember, there's two types of ports. There's the flow port as well as the data ports. The data port here is this one, the circles, as opposed to the arrows or the triangles. Now, this if statement or this if block here sort of has its input flow as most blocks do. And it's got that dual output sort of determining which way I should go. And then this data connection here is supposed to be a Boolean, right? Meaning either a true or a false value, right? Well, I can get a true or false value from this input get button down. The role of this unit here is to tell me, is this button being pressed down? And then it will output that value as a Boolean, as a true or false value. I can take the output of this node and connect it to the input of this node. Lastly, I need to hook up what my button name should be. I'm going to use jump. Jump by default in Unity is hooked up to the spacebar, as well as on a controller it's hooked up to the A button. So right now what I have hooked up is every single update, so 100 plus times a second, it will check whether or not I've pressed the spacebar. If it has, then, or even if it hasn't, it will pass a value, either true or false, along to this if statement. Then when this if statement runs, if that value is true, it will follow this path. And if that value is false, it will follow this path.